Whoa, what an intense movie. I just got back seeing the sequel to Blade Runner 2049. I watched it last night. I watched it pretty late. Watched it at 10:45. Did not know it was going to be almost 3 hours long. This movie is intense, and it's a very long movie. I'm going to only talk very briefly about it because it's an experience to watch it, and I don't really want to explain too much. So Ryan Gosling is an LAPD officer, and he is a Blade Runner. This is 30 years in the future, where where originally Harrison Ford left off. Ryan Gosling tracks down original Blade Runner. There's these new Blade Runners now. That's what Ryan Gosling is, and they are more loyal, and they are created by Jared Leto, and he has thousands and millions of these Blade Runners, and their job is to track down the old models, particularly. Kind of a similar setup like the original Blade Runner in a way. And so what happens is Ryan Gosling goes on this extremely long but also excellently paced journey trying to figure things out and piece puzzles together. He unveils his secret about a particular thing that is connected to him potentially, and pretty much things unfold from there, and he is on a mission to figure stuff out, and eventually he will lead to Harrison Ford, obviously. He will lead to Deckard, aka Harrison Ford, eventually, and this story really unfolds in a way that I think is very similar to the original Blade Runner. And so now I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the pros and the cons of this film. That way I don't really give too much away. I just wanted to set up that Ryan Gosling is on this mission trying to figure out the secret in this past that is connected to him, but also connected to Deckard, Harrison Ford. And it's a really long but really worthwhile journey. So, like I was saying, the pacing of this film is extraordinary. However, it could potentially be a con, which I'll get to in a second. But the pacing of this film is just a lot like the first film. It feels like I've seen I've only seen 3 of the versions here on Blade Runner. I've seen the original cut, I've seen the director's cut, and I've seen the final cut. And I would say that the final cut obviously being the best in my opinion, because Ridley Scott had the original director's control, but now Denis Villeneuve, who is an amazing film director, who directed Blade Runner 2049. He's directed Arrival, he's directed Sicario, Enemy, Prisoners, Incendies. I'm sure I missed one, but there's a lot of movies that this guy has already heralded, and I'm fairly certain he is the next Ridley Scott. He is the next James Cameron, or honestly P.T. Anderson. He's very connected to detail, and I thought that aspect of this film is really, really cool, because it's almost where it's in the future, obviously, and there's some elements of it that really show this dystopian kind of future, but also at the same time some of this could be potentially real, and honestly could be what's happening potentially in the future. I don't know about 2049, that's a little too soon for that. However, I like this world. I like the setup of this world, and that's what I really liked about Blade Runner in the first place, is it felt so strange, but also at the same time so melancholic and kind of dour. It was always dark, a lot of rain, flying cars. There's a lot of technology that is ramped up, a lot of things, but also at the same time, it's a film noir. It's a modern day film noir, and that's what this movie's continued to do. So moving on from there, the visuals in this movie, as I was kind of explaining, are insanely stunning, and they're connected to the soundtrack really, really well, because the original has a fantastic soundtrack, but this one has a really, really good soundtrack as well. This one connects a lot to a lot of the visuals that are happening on the screen. I watched it at the IMAX, and so I wanted to see it in its full glory first before I went to my favorite theater. And so it was breathtaking and stunning at the same time, because a lot of the visuals connected to the sounds and the soundscapes that were going on in this movie, but also it was really intense, and also just helped the vision of the movie and how it progressed forward, and I really enjoyed that aspect. Also, I'm not going to really talk about this too much, and I say that a lot, but the ending of this film left a great note, just like the original Blade Runner did. The original Blade Runner ending is one of in my opinion, most iconic endings of a film, because it's so open-ended and also just so personal, and just it's beautiful almost in a way. And so this movie has a very similar ending, and I think will connect a lot to a lot of audiences, and I think that's something that you should definitely look into as you're looking into this movie. Alright, so now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the cons, and there's only a few that I can think of. One, as we were talking about the pacing a little bit earlier, now this movie could potentially be way too slowly paced for you as the audience member, potentially. And that's what I'm saying is, I watched it at 10:45. It was almost a 3-hour movie. That's a long movie, and I was around some friends who were kind of just like, you know, nodding off. They didn't sleep, but obviously they were like, man, this is like, it's taking a long time to get to certain places, right? But it's totally worth it in my book, obviously. But there could be a potential con is the pacing and how long it is. The length of this is potentially a problem. Another thing is, occasionally, and this is only for me, I felt some of the character development was a little out of place, and that was just personally. At the very beginning, when I was seeing Ryan Gosling as this new Blade Runner, some of the dialogue seemed out of place, and it seemed like I didn't really know it was supposed to be that way, and it just felt a little odd. I don't know, it was a little cattywampus. It was a little strange how he acted, but I think it developed into a way where it made a lot of sense for what position he was at. Another thing is the ending, like I was saying, is very powerful. However, I don't think it's as powerful as the original ending. And that's not... I'm obviously dividing the movies. This movie is very divided from the original, because they're their own pieces, and they're also different directors, of course. But I like to think that this original ending is a lot more powerful. However, the new one is also very powerful in itself, in its own right. It's almost like this movie is going to be a sci-fi classic in the future. So with all those pros and cons, where does this movie rank with me? To me, this movie is somewhere between a 4 and a 5. With some of those cons, I would give this movie a 4 out of 5. Personally, I would say this movie is probably going to potentially grow into a 5 out of 5. I think that this movie warrants several visits, just like you should watch Blade Runner, the original, several times. And I think that's what this movie is going to turn out to be, because the original, just like this one, requires a lot of digestion and a lot of just takes to watch it. So with that being said, I would say definitely go watch this movie, or definitely own this movie in some capacity, because it's definitely worth it. Give me a like and comment down below. Don't forget to share this video and subscribe as well. And I will be doing a podcast later today, and it might be up tonight, it might be up tomorrow. So anyway, I will see everyone next time. I'm not jonesing around.